In this video, you will learn how to stitch a facing to the back neckline of a top. A facing is a simple addition to a garment that can add strength to a neckline while also giving it a neat finish. We shall first stitch the strip of facing that was prepared to the shape of the neckline onto the right side of the top before folding it into the garment and understitching along the fold. To learn how to stitch an interfacing to the front neckline, watch the previous video. To stitch the facing along the neckline of the back piece, start by spreading out the fabric cut for the facing flat on top of the table. Now make an inward fold half an inch from the straight raw edges as shown. Finger press the folds to set a crease. When this is done, place one end under the needle and start stitching along the fold less than 1/4 of an inch from the edge. As you approach the corner, stop stitching and adjust the fold before you proceed. Once you reach the corner, lift the presser foot with the needle still in the fabric, pivot the facing to line up the stitch to the next fold, and push the presser foot down. Continue stitching along the remaining folds, applying the pivoting technique at the corner. Make sure you gave a perfect V shape with the hemmed edges. We shall now stitch the facing onto the wrong side of the neckline. To do this, lay the back piece on the table with its wrong side down and place the right side of the facing onto the back piece along the neckline. Make sure their raw edges are aligned together. Secure the facing to the back piece by attaching pins. When this is done, place one end of the neckline under the needle. Make a reverse stitch and continue stitching 1/4 of an inch from the edge along the neckline. Remove the pins as they approach the needle. When you reach a corner, use the pivoting technique with the needle inserted as we did before. Once you have finished stitching along the entire neckline, remove the remaining pins. Now make a series of cuts along the curve of the neckline all the way in until the seam, and snip off the seam allowance at the corners. Be careful not to cut into the stitch. Now flip the facing over to the wrong side and finger press the seam so it settles in. Use a pair of scissors or a pointed object to carefully push the corner out. Adjust the fold till it's uniform. We shall now understitch the neckline to set the facing in place with a more defined shape. Understitching connects the facing to the neckline, keeping it turned inwards just enough so it cannot be seen from the outside. With the right side facing up, place one end of the neckline under the needle and start stitching along the curve 1/16 of an inch from the edge. At the corner, pivot the garment as you did before, proceeding towards the end of the neckline. We shall now stitch in place the free outer edge of the facing. Place one end of it under the needle as shown and stitch as close as possible to the edge. When this is done, make sure that the stitch is uniform. Turn over to the right side of the garment so that the stitch is as shown. You've now learned how to stitch a facing to the back neckline of a top. To learn how to stitch the shoulder seams, watch the next video.